Okay, so now that I've gone over the build, what are you going to do with all the armor? Because look, I'll try and put some clips together here to show you like the amount of armor I got. But basically, well, not just what to do with the armor, but how to get a lot of it, right? Because you're only getting basically a 50-50 shot at a piece of artifice armor with every run. Uh, but the other thing is, to make this more efficient, consider what else you're getting from the encounter. So if you go to the helm, right? I think I'm in the helm right now. Yeah, I'm here. Go to the helm, go to the witch area, go to the deep area, go to the defiant area at the war table, go to Riven. Make sure you have all of the artifacts selected, right? Like if you haven't been here in a long time, uh, you'll get like a pop-up here that says, oh, you need to use the artifact to access the next page, basically. Select it. It's not going to change anything. You're still going to have your Queen's Foil sensor. You're still going to have all this. Like, it's, I don't know, it's weird. It's not very straightforward, but you go to those vendors and you're just going to have to select the old artifacts, and then it gives you access to this screen right here. Right, and then but most importantly, why do you want to do that? You want to make sure you have the artifacts for all the vendors, right? It resets every season, so you need to, like, at the beginning of the season, go to each one of these vendors and select, make sure you collect those artifacts so that you can actually collect engrams, because that's what it does. If you have the artifact, then it means that at the end of like encounters in dungeons and raids and elsewhere, end of activities, you're going to get engrams for every one of those vendors. So there were times on after killing Rathiel and getting that 50-50 shot at a piece of artifice armor, I would get up to like 6 engrams to bring to the helm between between like different vendors, right? So I get like 2 deep engrams, 2 witch engrams, 2 wish engrams, maybe a defiant engram. Like I would just get a whole bunch of engrams, right? So that means that you can take those engrams and literally buy high stat armor, right? And the high stat armor that you get from these vendors can roll the exact same as the artifice armor, because the artifice armor rolls at 65 max from my experience in Warlord's Ruin first encounter, plus your 3 from your mod slot, from your artifice slot, so 68, right? So you can get a maximum of 68 armor for artifice, and same goes for legendary high stat armor from all of these vendors at the helm, right? So you just come here and you select this engram and just buy as many as you can, right? So what I did on my hunter was I ended up getting like a couple dozen pieces of artifice armor, and then I was sick of farming. I came back to the helm. I realized I had like 100 engrams between different vendors to spend. I spent them all. Make sure you check your postmaster, because I accidentally deleted like 7 pieces of 66 to 68 high stat armor. But yeah, so that's the way to farm it. Is don't just look at it as artifice armor. Look at it as artifice armor plus a lot of high stat armor. And then what you do with that is, I would show you on my PC, but my PC's out of room. I go to dim, and then I select, let's go to a build here that I just recently optimized. I go to loadout optimize, or go to loadouts, right, which is the tab on the top across dim, and then I go to loadout optimizer, and I make sure that I have, for the stat tier priorities and ranges, make sure I have all of them selected with no like minimum tier requirement, right? Just have them all set to 0, minimum of 0, have all stats selected. Never mind your triple 100s right now, because right now, like, I'm just focusing on getting the highest tiers of stats overall, right, across the entire build. Then you can select any exotic. So now it's going to give you a list on dim from in descending order from your highest stat builds to your lowest stat, right? These are armor sets. They go with specific exotics. So what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for tier 33 builds. And what that means is, well, okay, let's look at this tier 33 build that I have on right here, which I recently just acquired from my farming because before I did this farm, I didn't have any tier 33 builds on Hunter. I have maybe 5 or 6 on Titan, and I have like 7 or 8 on Warlock. I had nothing on Hunter. So I really focused a lot of my farming efforts on Hunter, and then I got a couple different builds. I got a Lucky Pants build that's tier 33 now, and I've got Cyratarachnies that's tier 33. I've got this Foe Tracer build here that's no wasted stats. Right, this is only a tier 32 build, but with D2 Armor Picker, you can go there and you can do no wasted stat builds, right? But I'm not really going to talk about that because I don't really know D2 Armor Picker that well, other than that I know it does no wasted stat builds pretty easily. I also got like a Speed Loader Slacks build that's tier 33 and Oath Keepers, so I've got five armor sets that fit with exotics that go into tier 33 builds, right? But so looking at the Cyratarachny build here, what do I mean by tier 33? Okay, so let's take off all the fragments, right? Anything that can modify the stats, let's just take that off. Take off all the combat mods. I'm not going to touch the artifice slots because when Dim does the loadout optimization, even if you don't add stat mods, it will automatically add the artifice armor slots that it needs to make the overall tiers of the build as high as possible. All right, so it's just gonna just trust on Dim's artifice selection. It works very good for that. But yeah, we're gonna take out 5. We have 5 slots, right? So we have 5 tiers of extra stats from our combat mods on our armor, right? I just removed all of them, so now we have none. We've got no fragments modifying our stats. We've got no mods modifying our stats, right? So this is just our armor. And of course, when you're doing this on Dim, just assume that everything's masterworked, even the new stuff, right? Because then you can save that armor, you can save that set, and then you just masterwork it whenever you're ready to use that build. But just assume that everything's masterworked. And this is going to give you, this is a tier 33 build. So 4 plus 8 is 12, plus 4 is 16, plus 8 is 24, plus 5 is 29, plus 4 is 33. Okay, so this is a base tier 33 build. And I actually had, like, Dim was showing me maybe 6 different options that I had of armor sets to pair with Cyratarachny to be a tier 33 build. But obviously, they all had different stat distributions. So this one specifically had the lowest intellect, right? Like some of them were tier 7 intellect. Even tier 5 intellect is too much. So if I get another set that actually has lower intellect that is also a tier 33 build, I'm going to go with that, because the lower the intellect, the better, because it just means that these other stats are going to be higher, right? But overall, not a bad stat distribution. I've got 8 resilience, 4 mobility. That's 12 together. That's pretty good. It's actually kind of hard to find anything above 14 in resilience and mobility. But yeah, so pretty good stats there. And then that gives me the then I've got the flexibility to kind of do what I want with the 5 extra tiers of stats that I can add to my armor. And of course there's the fragments as well, but you probably know how I feel about that. You don't want to use fragments to modify your stats. Use fragments because they make the build, right? Your aspects and your fragments and your exotic and your weapons, that makes the build. Your stats are just kind of like complementary, right? But basically, so look at the stats here. This is tier 33, right? Then when I add combat mods to all of and I only added 4, right? I kept my legs empty so that I can have triple surges, right? And then that brings me up to tier 7 mobility, tier 10 resilience, tier 7 discipline. So if I wanted to, I can use font of focus and font of agility and have triple 100s. But yeah, there's a lot of flexibility there. So now I've got a good tier 33 build and almost no wasted stats, right? I'm only over by 1. Same goes for Lucky Pants, right? So Lucky Pants here. Let's take off all this. Take off our 5 extra tiers of stats. Take off all of our fragments. Okay, nothing modifying the stats. These are the stats at base. 4 plus 10 is 14, 17, 24, 31, wait, 24, 28 plus 5 is 33, right? So tier 33. This is a tier 33 build. That means that I have the highest stats possible for Lucky Pants at this time. There might exist tier 34 builds. I think if you had all the highest stat armor possible and everything just keyed together perfectly with the stat distributions and the spikes, then yeah, you could probably get tier 34. I've never seen it. But yeah, if you can get some tier 33 builds, that's pretty good. And so I have tier 10 resilience, tier 4 mobility, tier 7 discipline. This is actually a very good distribution. And I can take this onto any subclass basically, right? And I can make it work because Lucky Pants are universal. And that allows me to look at the stats now. And then when I put the build together, I've got this. So now I've got I brought up my strength, right? So this kind of looks nice, right? That's all it is. I got tier 7 mobility, tier 7 discipline, tier 7 strength. If I wanted to, I can make this a quad 100 build with font of agility, which I have on here. So I got tier 10 mobility. And then I can go font of focus, which I already have for tier 10 discipline. And then I could put font of vigor on there instead of kinetic loader and have tier 10 strength, right? I don't need to do that. It's just if I wanted to, I could have quad 100s. And then recovery and intellect sitting at tier 4 is pretty nice. So yeah, so I got a couple builds out of that, and that's basically just from farming artifice armor and claiming those engrams, and then saving those loadouts on dim, right? So just save the armor sets. That's what I do. I save all armor sets that fit into tier 33 builds, and then whatever doesn't, I basically delete unless it's very high stat. So what armor do you want to just automatically delete if it doesn't fit into a build? Anything below, for my personal preference or my own like filter parameters for keeping armor, because I don't want to clog up my vault, is I don't keep anything below 66. Anything that's 66 and up, I keep. And I will tell you this, I've got in total now about 25 builds that are tier 33 builds, right? So I've got like 6 or 7 on Titan. I've got 5 on Hunter, and I've got like maybe 8 or 9 on Warlock, or 7 or something like that. Every single one of those builds, and I checked and I put them in a spreadsheet. I looked at all of the armor pieces in each one of those individual sets, and there's not a single piece of armor that is below 65 base, right? And in fact, there's only 1 or 2 of those builds that fit into all of my tier 33 builds that have a piece of armor that is 65. So basically everything is 66 and up. So if you want to get tier 33 builds, then just hold on to everything that's 66 and up. And if you're not quite there with your builds yet, and your armor farms and your overall vault full of armor, maybe keep 65s or 64s even. And if it's artifice armor, add the 3, right? So don't delete artifice armor if it's 65 and lower, because it's got that extra slot for 3. So I would recommend that you keep artifice armor at 63 and up, because that way it's technically 66 and up, right? And artifice armor actually works its way into a lot more builds than you'd think, even if it's low stat, because the flexibility of artifice armor, it'll actually fall into a lot of tier 33 builds, even if it's got lower overall stats than high stat armor at like 68. Anyways, that's about it for the video. I will see you in the next one.
there.